Sana italang pagtaas ng GDP na 2.8% sa unang quarter ng taong 2026. Ang services ay nagtala ng may pinakamataas na kontribusyon na mayroong 2.8 percentage points. Samantala, ang agriculture, forestry and fishing at industry ay nagtala ng contribution na nasa negative 0.02 percentage point at negative 0.01 percentage point respectively. Sa 16 na sektor ng GDP, ang Public Administration and Defense, Compulsory Social Security ay nagdala ng may pinakamataas na paglago na mayroong 8.6% sa unang quarter ng taong 2026. Ito ay sinundan ng mga sumusunod. Human Health and Social Work Activities na tumaas ng 7.4%, Education na tumaas ng 6.1%, at Wholesale and Retail Trade, Repair of Motor Vehicles and Motorcycles na tumaas ng 4.6%. Ang mga sektor na may malalaking kontribusyon sa pagtaas ng GDP sa unang quarter ng taong 2026 ay ang mga sumusunod. Wholesale and Retail Trade, Repair of Motor Vehicles and Motorcycles na nagambag ng 0.8 percentage point. Financial and Insurance Activities na nagambag ng 0.4 percentage point at Public Administration and Defense, Compulsory Social Security na nagambag ng 0.36 percentage point. Sa demand side naman, ang volubles ay nagtala ng may pinakamataas na paglago na mayroong 92.8% sa unang quarter ng taong 2026. Ito ay sinundan ng mga sumusunod. Exports of goods na tumaas ng 13.3%, imports of goods na tumaas ng 6.8%, at government final consumption expenditure na tumaas ng 4.8%. Sa unang quarter ng taong 2026, ang mga sektor na may malaking kontribusyon sa pagtaas ng GDP sa expenditure side ay ang mga sumusunod. Household final consumption expenditure na nagambag ng 2.2 percentage points, government final consumption expenditure nagambag ng 0.8 percentage point, at intellectual property products na nagambag ng 0.02 percentage point. Ang Philippine Statistics Authority ay malugod na nagpapasalamat sa inyong pagdalo sa National Accounts Press Conference para sa unang quarter ng taong 2026. Salamat at magandang umaga sa ating lahat.
Maraming salamat, Yusek Mapa, para sa ulat ng 2026 first quarter performance of the Philippine economy. Ngayon, atin namang pakinggan si DepDev Secretary Arsenio M. Balisacan para sa kanyang pahayag ukol sa 2026 first quarter performance of the Philippine economy.
Good morning to our friends from the media, fellow Filipinos, ladies and gentlemen. Good morning. Today, I would like to provide context the performance of the Philippine economy during the first quarter of 2026. As reported by the Philippine Statistics Authority, the Philippine economy grew by 2.8% in the first quarter of the year, slightly lower than the 3.0% growth recorded the previous quarter. Among our neighboring economies in Asia that have released their first quarter GDP figures, our growth performance trails Vietnam, Indonesia, and China, among others in the region. We recognize that this outcome reflects the combined impact of significant domestic and global challenges. First, the lingering effects of the flood control corruption controversy weighed on consumer sentiment and business and investment confidence. Second, delays in the passage and subsequent release of the 2026 national budget slowed the rollout of critical government programs and infrastructure projects, particularly in public construction. Third and foremost, the conflict in the Middle East, which escalated toward the end of February, triggered higher global oil prices and renewed supply chain pressures, creating additional risk for oil importing economies such as the Philippines. These challenges are real, and the Marcos administration is confronting them directly and decisively. Restoring public trust and strengthening institutional credibility remain among the Marcos administration's highest priorities. Addressing corruption firmly and transparently is essential to rebuilding confidence among businesses, investors, and consumers alike. At the same time, we are pursuing reforms that will improve transparency, accountability, and efficiency in government processes. These include the digitalization of budget procedures, faster approval systems, and stronger project monitoring mechanisms. The President has also directed implementing agencies to accelerate the execution of high-impact infrastructure projects in the coming months. Their catch-up plans must be guided by clear milestones, sound risk management, and strong accountability mechanisms. We are confident that the current leadership of the infrastructure-related agencies, especially the Department of Public Works and Highways, the Department of Transportation, will move critical infrastructure projects forward with greater urgency and discipline for the remainder of the year. Even as we accelerate implementation, we remain committed to fiscal prudence. We'll enforce stricter validation standards and more rigorous monitoring systems to ensure that public resources are used efficiently, responsibly, and transparently. On the external front, the Marcos administrations acted swiftly in response to the Middle East conflict through a whole of government approach under the Unified Package for Livelihoods, Industry, Food, and Transport, or UPLIFT. This program brings together coordinated and targeted measures to cushion the impact of rising fuel prices and global disruptions on vulnerable sectors and affected industries. The Asian Development Bank has recognized UPLIFT as among the most comprehensive responses to the ongoing global crisis. For details about support interventions, accomplishments to date, and target beneficiaries under UPLIFT, see the program's microsite through uplift.gov.ph. Moving forward, we'll pivot UPLIFT strategic initiatives to ensure faster, more transparent, and fiscally responsible delivery of assistance and support for business continuity. At the same time, we continue to work closely with local government units, users, transport groups, and other stakeholders to protect vulnerable households, workers, and overseas Filipino workers from the effects of global volatility. We are likewise preparing for the possible effects of the developing El Nino phenomenon, which may emerge in the coming months and persist in early 2027. In anticipation of this risk, we support the reactivation of the El Nino Task Force to ensure a coordinated national response aimed at minimizing economic losses and protecting livelihoods. Our focus will be on sound water and irrigation management, ensuring the reliability of critical infrastructure, and strengthening climate risk mapping and weather forecasting to support timely and science-based interventions. Looking ahead, while global uncertainty remains elevated, we remain firmly focused on strengthening the country's economic foundations and regaining stronger growth momentum in succeeding quarters, and further ensure budget support for various measures through the proposed UPLIFT bill. We expect government spending and project implementation to accelerate in the coming months as agencies operationalize their catch-up programs. At the same time, we continue to position the Philippines as a competitive manufacturing hub for AI-enabled electronics, semiconductors, and electric vehicles. Our semiconductor and electronic exports are expected to remain resilient, supported by sustained global demand and continuing tariff exemptions. We also welcome strategic investments in advanced materials, electric vehicle manufacturing, and high-value industries that will deepen technology transfer and strengthen our industrial ecosystem. At the same time, we continue to position the Philippines as a competitive manufacturing hub or to sustain growth and resilience. We call on all sectors, government, business, labor, and civil society to work together as partners in navigating today's challenges and building tomorrow's opportunities. While uncertainties remain, we are guided by the sound economic fundamentals, clear policy direction, vision and push for structural reforms, and our shared commitment to improving the lives of every Filipino. By continuing to strengthen our institutions, pursue meaningful reforms, expand opportunities for investment and innovation, we face the months ahead with cautious optimism, renewed confidence, and determination. Maraming salamat at magandang umaga sa inyong lahat.
Maraming salamat po, Secretary Balisacan. Tumako na po tayo sa ating open forum. Bago natin ito simulan, nais po naming pasalamatan ang lahat ng ating media partners na kasama sa press briefing na ito. Para po sa maayos na pagsasagawa ng ating open forum, ay narito ang ilang mga paalaala. Para sa online participants, maaari po ninyong gamitin ang raise hand feature ng Zoom kung nais niyo pong direktang magtanong sa ating mga resource persons. Kapag kayo po ay natawag upang magtanong, pakibanggit po muna ang inyong pangalan at ang organisasyong inyong kinabibilangan bago po banggitin ang inyong tanong. Maaari rin po kayong magpadala ng katanungan gamit ang Zoom chat box. Siguraduhin lamang po na nakalagay ang inyong pangalan at ang organisasyong inyong kinabibilangan. Panatilihin po nating nakamute ang ating mga mic kung kayo po ay hindi pa natatawag upang magtanong. Para naman po sa ating mga on-site participants, pakitaas po ang inyong kamay kung kayo ay may katanungan at hintayin lamang po na kayo ay ma-acknowledge upang magtanong. Kapag kayo ay natawag upang magtanong, pakibanggit po ang inyong pangalan at ang organisasyong inyong kinabibilangan bago banggitin ang inyong tanong. Para sa kopya ng ating press kit, ipapadala naman po namin ito sa ating online media participants via email pagkatapos po ninyong sagutan ang evaluation form na ipapadala via email, Zoom at Viber group chat. Ang printout ng ating press kit ay ibibigay naman po ng aming staff sa mga on-site media participants pagkatapos sagutan ang printed evaluation form. Ngayon ay handa na po tayong i-open ang ating Q&A for this round of press conference. May I ask if there are any questions coming from our on-site participants? We'll go first with Ms. Titas Lopez of Bloomberg.
Good morning, Secretary. Say that the wars yet to come after the first quarter data and downward revision target now on the
Our DBCC is meeting next week to review these economic numbers that have just been released, and we'll make decisions accordingly. But we would expect some revisions in the growth assumptions among other indicators to reflect the current
growth still.
well, it depends so much on and primarily the Middle East conflict. No? Hopefully, things have improved in the last few days, and I think the oil prices have come down to $95 per barrel this morning. No, so hopefully that continue. But we do know already that even as the Middle East conflict ends today, the lingering effects of the oil prices and supply chain disruptions will persist in the coming months. So there are continuing challenges ahead.
Thank you very much. Another question from our on-site. We'll go with Mr. Durko Rizal of Manila Bulletin.
Good morning, sir. Sec RC, hello po. Sir, given the three-year high inflation in April, which is also expected to breach double digits by the fourth quarter of the year, given that and the recent or consecutive slowdowns in economy, can we categorically say that we are now suffering stagflation?
Um, I don't see it that way. In stagflation, their standard textbooks it's usually thought of as the presence of three things simultaneously. Yeah? One is high inflation, where prices keep rising. The other one is slow or stagnant economic growth. No? And third is high unemployment. I think as in the before the onset of the crisis, we are seeing impacts, in the economy from 2023 when you had high inflation of close to of about 8%. Now we managed to get that's inflation down to between 1 and 2%. No? And um, and that's the job ahead of us in the coming months to tame the inflation again. And unemployment still not hasn't gone to the highs of the past, and we see some improvements in the quality of jobs. Uh, if you look at it from the last 3 years, and although we saw slow or economic growth, but I think that the first two or the last 2 quarters or 3 quarters, third quarter of last year, are unusual quarters. No, all this combined, and I think we are uh, moving away from that. And we have learned our lessons. We have moved fast, as even ADB recognized that in addressing the issues, and so we expect to get this the ecosystem improve substantially so that we can regain our momentum.
Thank you very much, Secretary Balisacan. Another question coming from our on-site participant. This is coming from Sir Jackie Pascual of ABS-CBN.
Hello. Good morning, Sec.
Good morning.
Sir, just your outlook for the year, considering that a lot of global agencies lowered their growth forecast for the are we worse, considering you've mentioned? Thank you, sir.
Yeah, the global economy is expected to further slow down this year, no? According to the IMF recent release. No? And the combination of events, both domestic and global, is likely to reduce growth, not just of the Philippines countries. Yeah, we don't expect to achieve the kind of growth that as expected to happen a year ago, given the development, and we will adjust accordingly.
To follow up to you, Sec Mapa. Sir, 2.8 is lowest in quarter B, as well as, sir, household final consumption expenditure. 20.
Yung GDP natin, may negative growth kasi tayo nung pandemic. So this is the lowest. Yung 2.8 ngayong Q1 2026, lowest since the first quarter of 2021, where GDP grew by negative 3.8. Pandemic yun, ano? For the household final consumption expenditure, yung ating number ngayon, this is the lowest also since Q1 of 2021, same quarter period wherein the household final consumption expenditure grew by negative 4.8.
Sir, yung walang pandemic, remove the
Kung wala yung pandemic, 1.8 Q4 2029 yung mababa sa GDP at sa household final consumption expenditure naman nung Q3 2010 kung saan yung ating household final consumption expenditure grew by 2.6. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Secretary and Yusek Mapa. Now we proceed with the question of Ms. Keisha Taasan of Philstar.
Good morning. For Sec Balisacan, with growth at current government target is still at 5%, what pace
As I mentioned earlier, our DBCC will meet next week, assess the current situation, given the economic indicators that this week, and but we definitely will move our growth targets lower because given the situations, especially the global uncertainty remaining highly elevated, our pre-Middle East conflict assumptions would no longer hold.
for USEC MAPA, household spending slowed sharply to 3%. Is this mainly due to inflation, higher borrowing costs, weak confidence, or base effects po?
Yung may nakikita naman natin in the past, ano, yung inflation is talagang major factor doon sa pagbaba ng growth rates sa household final consumption expenditure. So nakikita natin yon, not just this period but several periods. And from the BSP then, yung ating consumer expectation survey, of course, negative pa rin yung ating expectation doon from the consumer side. So these are factors that would most probably contributed to the slowdown in the household final consumption expenditure. Ang pinakamalaki kasi na component dito ay yung food and non-alcoholic beverages. At for this quarter, Q1 2026, it grew by 0.3%, so almost flat. Yung ating growth rates sa food and non-alcoholic beverages under the household final consumption expenditure. Thank you.
No. Last na po from me, Sec RC. Some lawmakers are suggesting to increase the minimum wage to mitigate the impact of inflation and remove provincial rate. What is the stance of the economic team regarding increasing minimum wage? Ano po, and could this be effective in helping mitigate inflation?
Yeah. We're very concerned about the welfare of our workers, given the shocks that the economy are facing. And we are, apart from consideration of wage increases, we are undertaking under the uplift many interventions to support assistance, including income support for the vulnerable sectors and especially the poor. Insofar as wage negotiations concerned, our position is that we would want as much as possible that negotiation to be a negotiation among parties involved directly in the labor market, and that is the employers, the workers, and government. And we ensure that the workers are properly represented in those negotiations. They have the appropriate information, and duly will ensure that, for example, that we see these minimum wages in the context of the broader considerations in the labor market to ensure that any increases in wages are not just temporary but are sustainable and will promote efficiency and growth in areas in various areas of the country. In the end, we see that those two things, the availability of employment opportunities and the rises in wages as a result of those opportunities would need to be ensured.
Thank you very much, Secretary. I will go first with the online questions before we proceed with more questions coming from our media participants here. We'll go first with Ruel Castro of Malaya Business Insight. Pwede po kayang mahingi ang actual growth ng mga elements na bumubuo ng expenditure side? I think this is for Yusek Napa.
Okay. Yung sa expenditure side, itong ating household final consumption expenditure, tumaas ito ngayong first quarter ng 2026 ng 3.0%. Yung ating government final consumption expenditure, it grew by 4.8%. Yung ating gross capital formation, ito yung investment natin, ito ay negative 3.3%. At yung exports of goods and services, tumaas ng 7.8% at yung imports of goods and services tumaas din ng 6.1%. Overall, yung ating GDP ay tumaas ng 2.8%.
Thank you very much, Yusek Napa. Now, this question is from Sir Gerard de la Peña of TV5. This is for Secretary Balisacan. How do you think consumption will affect economic growth in the second quarter, at least given the high inflation?
First, consumption are affected by at least three things. No, the level of prices is one, but income, households' income is another one, and the third is expectations about the future, and in this case, expectation in the second quarter. Right? Yes, prices are elevated, and the lingering effects of the oil price spikes in the past weeks are likely to persist in the weeks ahead. But as I said earlier, we expect to have some moderations and that developments in the global markets will continue to improve. With respect to the second factor, that is the income, no? As I mentioned in my message, we are pushing for the acceleration of the implementation of programs because part of the low growth in the second or first quarter is the delays in the implementation of government programs, particularly infrastructure, and catch-up efforts are underway to in the coming months, and so that should impact on incomes, household incomes in the coming months, as well as hopefully the confidence in the economy among not just consumers but also the business and investment sectors will improve along with improvements in the global and domestic fronts.
Thank you very much, Secretary Balisacan. Now, the next question is coming from Ms. Eileen Menches of Abante. This one is for Yusek Mapa. There were no adjustments in the quarter 4 2025 GDP numbers. Were there some fine-tuning in the data collection that made it more accurate that there were no adjustments?
Yung GDP growth was not adjusted and remained the same, but yung mga detalye doon ay nagkaroon ng mga adjustments. As always, yung Philippine Statistics Authority, meron kasi tayong revision policy at ina-update natin palagi yung ating estimates ng GDP at iba pang mga official statistics pag may mga dumarating na mga bagong datos. So yung report namin na adjustment for the last quarter, Q4, in fact, we adjusted 2023 to 2025 GDP growth as of April 8, 2026, because there were new available data from our survey, such as the quarterly survey of Philippine Business and Industry. May bago tayong mga information from balance of payments at pumasok din yung mga new data for government expenses from our COA. May mga additional financial statements tayo from our companies that are part of our sample and new administrative data. So this is a process. While the estimate for the GDP remain the same based on available data, yung mga components niya ay nagkaroon ng mga adjustments which we reported recently. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Yusek Mapa. Now we proceed with a question of Ms. Justin Irish Dabile of Business World, to be followed by the two ladies here in front.
Good morning po. For Sec Balisacan, with inflation expected to be above target until next year, do you expect this to result in more rate hikes from the BSP? And how would the rate hikes affect demand or consumption and growth?
What's the first part of your question again? Sorry.
With inflation expected to be above target until next year.
Yeah. Right. I think the the inflation for the entire year 2026 will exceed the target of 2 to 4%, given the persisting effects of the oil price shocks and its possible ramifications in other markets. So do I expect policy rate hikes? I would not want to to jump into the shoes of BSP, but inflation is their mandate. Inflation control management is their mandate, and they have a targets to achieve. And if they think that high inflation, in their own view, perspective, or assessment, shows that the higher inflation is anchoring their expectations, that could cause bigger problems in the future. No? So, and that could necessitate actions from them. No? And that would mean, in simple terms, rising policy rates. No? But it's their job. I think it's what's important. What's important is that even as monetary solutions of the problem could result in short-term growth reduction. What is important is that the growth in the longer term is better assured, and the damage on the economy caused by high inflation is controlled, so that sustainability of long term of growth moving forward is better assured. Yeah. So but I think what will be needed is a combination of both monetary and fiscal actions, because the root of the inflation here is from the supply side, no? But apparently, of course, it's also affecting now the demand side of the equation, and that's where BSP's actions are needed.
Thank you, Sec. And for Sec Mapa, which sector surprised on the upside and downside on the first quarter?
Come again?
Which sector surprised on the upside and downside in the first quarter?
Well, yung there are expectations na yung construction natin, for example, sa expenditure side, negative din ito noong Q4. Yung Sa ating production side naman, there are the usual no na ating industry sector like for example yung construction also negative since Q3 of 2025 and manufacturing has been going down. So not really in terms no kasi may mga data tayo na iba pa, so we are correlating this with a number of indicators and the expectation away from the statistical agency. Ito yung nakikita namin based on the data from our surveys and the different admin data that we have. But ang negative talaga na medyo tatlong quarters na sa ating production side ay construction. Pumasok na rin sa demand side, last 2 quarters negative yung growth rate at yung manufacturing has been slowing down since last year. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Yusek Mapa. Now we go first with Ms. Titas Lopez of Bloomberg, to be followed by Ms. Bernadette Reyes of GMA7.
Secretary, could you say that the corruption scandal hurt consumer spending? In what sectors kaya? Property or retail, luxury? And does that mean that a big chunk of the corruption money was helping Philippine growth in the past? Thank you so much.
I think the scandal has affected broad sentiments, consumption and investment sentiments. No? So it affects the economy broadly. So that's why the policy thrust of the administration is to regain that confidence of our economic actors, including consumers. No? You can see that clearly in the pattern of the consumption growth, no, beginning at the time of the third quarter and fourth quarter, and how consumption growth was sharply slowing down, while inflation was going down, you know, and interest policy rates were going down during that period, no, in the third and fourth quarter of last year. So, and those lingering effects are still felt today. But I think that we are moving, you know, gradually moving out of that situation, and government has, Marcos administration has initiated many reforms toward establishing accountability and transparency in government programs, and uplift is part of that system. Although the uplift is directly intended to address the most recent challenge, no, the Middle East conflict. So this combination of factors affected that the performance for the last quarter. I can't tell you yet the relative contribution of each of these different factors, but I think they also tend to create confluence in the effects.
So, sir, hindi lang yung confidence, no? Yun yung actual spending na nanggaling sa corruption. Masasabi mo ba na nabawasan yung nagpupunta? Kasi yung mga analysts, sinasabi nila, yung, for example, luxury property, before, it was in boom, tapos nung lumabas yung corruption, nagkaroon, they were expecting a slowdown. Do you share that view?
I think that the property development is it's a business cycle. It's there was a initially the high demand for and high expectations that the boom in the economy will continue for a long haul, and then we have some. So it's a question of supply exceeding the demand, so much, so that overbuilding is a characteristic of the housing market, in a growing economy. They tend to, and that's true also in the early stages of development in Thailand. You're seeing that boom now in Vietnam, and of course, China was a classic one, and they overbuilt tremendously now that they have some problems disposing a lot of condominiums, and it's affecting the financial sector as well, no? So it's but I think in our case it hasn't gotten that bad, and I think that there are segments in the housing sector that are still quite growing quite robust, no? And as the economy continues to recover, I think that the momentum will also gets underway there in the residential market.
Thank you very much, Secretary. Before I call on Ms. Bernadette, at this point, we will only accommodate last two questions, one from on-site and another online. So for those questions that cannot be accommodated in the interest of time, you may send us to the you may send your questions to the Secretariat so that our subject matter divisions, both from PSA and DepDev, may answer them. So now this one is coming from Ms. Bernadette Reyes of GMA7.
Actually, I have two questions
No,
po.
it's okay.
Good morning,
Yes.
Sec.
Good
Yusek.
morning.
Apo. Secretary, these numbers might be difficult to digest for ordinary Filipinos. Now, but the general understanding is that prices are rising. Now, having said that, does it mean for ordinary Filipinos, do they just keep on tightening their belts, or can they do something to perhaps improve their productivity to complement government's efforts so that they can better their situation?
Yeah, no, this issue has to be dealt with the whole of society, whole of government approach. No, as I said, the high inflation has reduced the purchasing power of households, and of course, belt tightening is an immediate response of many households, but the other response is to ensure that there are income opportunities there, better employment, so that the income part will improve. Secondly, to ensure that at least for the poor and very vulnerable groups, that government's presence is there in terms of providing the financial support, and we have those programs so that the effects of the reduction in the purchasing power of these groups of people will be mitigated, and and finally, of course, the immediate task for government, both the executive and the monetary sector, is to get those that inflation under control, and that's what we are working on. We are working on both the supply and demand. So supply, getting those production coming in through improvement, for example, in the productivity of our farmers and fisher folk, improving the logistics, the supply chain, so that inefficiencies there are reduced. Doon naman sa demand side, as soon as the situation has improved, eventually the central bank will resume its policy rate reduction. So that's a lot of things that need to be done to get the consumption confidence that I was mentioning earlier come back.
magtitipid po ang mga Pilipino.
Lahat tayo magtitipid kahit sa gobyerno, ipinag-utos na ni presidente na walang travels muna, mga necessary training programs, defer muna, and we prioritize and providing assistance to those members of our society who are least capable of adjusting to this challenge.
Sir, my second question. Earlier, Secretary Chu Laurel mentioned that there's a threat that rice prices might hit as high as 62 pesos per kilo come Burr months. So, does this mean that the worst isn't over yet? And do we see inflation figures going up further?
Yeah. Well, pinag-utos na ni Presidente kay Sec Laurel, no, na to speed up the implementation of programs that will enhance the production and productivity of our farms, no, and also to make sure that the inputs needed by our farmers are properly are provided and are accessible. The critical inputs here are the fertilizer, for example, used for crops, where prices in the world market for fertilizer have shot up because of the sharp increases in fuel prices, because fertilizer like urea comes from natural gas. But Secretary Rauler has been quite busy securing that fertilizer requirement needed, and assured us that there's enough supply for us. And yeah, so if we don't do anything, that's likely the outcome. But what the president is doing is to ensure that we are able to preposition our support for agriculture, so that prices won't go the way that we fear, no? Yeah, so as I said earlier, we are also going to file an urgent bill in Congress, no, to support the measures that we have put in place for the adjustments that we have to do.
Sir, pardon the question, but can we get a straight answer if the worst isn't over yet for Filipinos?
It's if I have the magic wand, then I would say yes, it's over. But we don't have the control realistically. You know what if somebody's mind changes again, and will cause another round of oil spiraling prices, no? So we don't have control of many of those events. The best that we could is preposition ourselves so that we can get our people secure and are more able to adjust, mitigate the pains, and able to seize the opportunities when things get back to normal. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you very much. So the last on-site question will be coming from Ms. Ditas Lopez before you proceed with the last one from our online. This is from Ditas Lopez again of Bloomberg.
Sir, sa sitwasyon na meron kang pataas na inflation at pababang economic growth, alin ba dapat ang mauna? And are you supportive of the central bank's monetary tightening bias or hawkish stance? Thank you so much.
There's really no conflict there, no? When inflation is sharply increased, when prices are sharply increasing, that destabilizes the economy, no? And that makes planning difficult. And so the long term and the medium term and long term can be affected. So controlling inflation now, even if it comes at lowering growth, is not necessarily bad. In the longer term, that your economy will be able to sustain productivity and income growth. No, so this when economists talked about these different policy tools that we have, we're not just looking at the short term, but also looking at the consequences of those tools that we deploy for the future. And we need to find a balance so that your long-term objective is not adversely affected.
Thank you very much, Secretary. And now our final question for this round of Q&A. This one is from Ms. Eileen Menches again of Abante. What would you compare this Middle East crisis to? How is it different from the Asian financial crisis, the global financial crisis, and other crises that you witnessed? How would the response to this one be different from other crises?
Oh, that's a tough question. but but I think what's quite different now is that the economies are so much more integrated now than 2 decades, 3 decades ago. Especially with all this digitalization, the fintech, the internet, AI, that has made us all these economies far apart but so close and affecting each other. So, the answer to that is the response to the issue can be quicker, but on the other hand, what we are seeing is not something that has resulted from games of the big fintech or finance people, but it's a partly geopolitical, right? That it's this the Middle East conflict is a part of the geopolitical conflict. And so, but I think that we have learned much from the financial crisis of 1997, the Asian financial crisis, and the global financial crisis of 2007 to 2008. No? And we have taken those lessons quite seriously, and we are better able to respond to crisis now as a result of those.
Thank you very much, Secretary Balisacan and Undersecretary Mapa. So that closes our Q&A. Bago po tayo magtapos ng ating press conference ngayong umaga, nais pong ipaalam ng PSA na magkakaroon ng ceremonial launching para sa APCAS o Administrative Petition for Correction Automated System na gaganapin sa May 12 sa 9th floor PSA Headquarters, PSA Complex East Ave, Diliman, Quezon City. Ang APCAS ay isang innovation ng PSA na layuning mas streamline ang correction ng civil registry documents mula sa manual processing tungo sa mas mabilis and mas minadaling digital workflow. Ito ay ayon sa layunan ng PSA na magkaroon ng end-to-end digitalization ang ating civil registration system. Iniimbitahan po ng PSA ang media para sa coverage ng APCAS ceremonial launch sa Martes, May 12. Mangyari lamang po na abangan ng ilalabas ng media advisory para sa iba pang mga detalye ng ceremonial launching. Additionally, for the latest updates on government efforts in response to the Middle East conflict, we invite everyone to visit the newly launched Uplift microsite. So the link is now shown on the screen. Dito na po nagtatapos ang ating open forum. Nais po ulit naming pasalamatan ang ating mga resource persons, DepDev Secretary Arsenio M. Balisacan at PSA Undersecretary Claire Dennis S. Mapa. Maraming salamat din po sa iba pang mga opisyal ng DepDev at PSA na kasama natin ngayon. Gayon din po sa ating mga media partners na nakilahok sa press conference na ito ng PSA para sa 2026 first quarter performance of the Philippine economy. We hope that you continue to support PSA and visit our website psa.gov.ph para sa karagdagang updates. Once again, I'm Nicole Navea from the PSA. Magandang lahat.